Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Through the Eyes of a Therapist podcast. I'm Crystal Acosta here with my co-host, Andrea Luna.
Hi. Hello.
Well, we want to ask you today, have you ever felt that you were in something that you knew was just wrong, but you couldn't leave? It could be a relationship or a job or a friendship. Well, this episode is going to be for you. We're going to be talking about relationships and why some relationships last longer than they should, or why we stay in them, maybe when we should not stay in them.
What makes it so hard to leave? It's like it hurts so good.
Oh, yeah? Yeah? Or te gusta la mala vida? Or
what's the term for it? When you like receiving pain?
misogyny or no?
Wait,
sorry.
masochism.
Masochism. Yeah. Sorry.
So if you're one of those out there, today is for you.
Yes.
Well,
so let's talk about
it. First of all, I think this is a big issue that shows up at work consistently.
Oh, yeah.
I would say like most cases.
Yes.
Usually it's like something happened in a relationship in your life, it's causing distress, and then now you're here like questioning yourself. So that's why it felt so important to talk about that today.
Absolutely. I have definitely seen a very strong pattern in my clients, in a lot of them. And without giving personal details or getting into like muddy waters of confidentiality and stuff and breaking that, it's just a strong pattern of, for example, myself and my caseload. I have a lot of females and women identifying people who have partners that maybe are not the healthiest, or their relationships are just not going so well and it's affecting their mental health tremendously. And so I think part of the work is helping them build their insight and have them understand what a healthy relationship means, and maybe even where that comes from. Like, why are they sticking around? I'm sure that you've probably seen the same as well.
Oh yeah. My demographic tends to be like the younger clients, like 20 to like 40. And so a lot of it is just like fluctuating relationship dynamics. So it's like, oh, this is like the third relationship that follows the same pattern. Like, why do I keep being stuck in this? Why is it so hard to leave? And it's a lot about recognition, right? And I did like identifying what the pattern is. I think the more information we give our brain, and then the more it makes sense, there's one day where it just kind of like clicks.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit. Like I'm
wow,
living it.
This is not good for me. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's like a whole process, right? So we're going to talk about reasons why you might be staying in that relationship. And again, relationships can be with a romantic partner or with a friend or with your workplace. And sometimes those dynamics can be not so good for you, affecting your mental health.
Yeah. Something important though is that it's not random. I like to think that like our baseline as humans is to go back to what's familiar.
Yes.
Right? Like we go back to that homeostasis, and familiar doesn't have to be healthy. I think that's a misconception that's out there, that like, oh, it's only like the good for me, but also the good for you can be very messy if that's what you grew up with. Maybe you grew up in an environment where your parents were always yelling, or there was a lot of physical violence or lack of affection, and so our body becomes accustomed to that and only knows to accept that.
Right. Yes. What is the saying? I would rather take a familiar hell than an unfamiliar peace. Something like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we choose these things because of attachment, which we'll talk about a little bit right now. And also, yeah, just that upbringing and what was normal for us in our households.
How would you explain the difference between chemistry and familiarity? Because a lot of people will say like, oh, well, it's because like this relationship feels like really exciting and it feels really good, versus like the boringness of a healthy, stable relationship. And we're both married. Like we know what that like long-term stability looks like. So it can get boring. Like a healthy relationship is innately boring.
Yeah. And it's also healthy to have conflict,
Yes.
right? So I think you said chemistry and what? What was the other term?
Familiarity.
Familiarity. Okay. I think that those two things, yeah, can get confused by people. when I think of chemistry, I think of actual like science chemistry, right? I'm not
Oh,
like the best at that subject, which is why I'm not in that field. But from what I understand, right, you have like two chemicals or whatever, and they create a reaction. And sometimes that reaction can be volatile or unsafe, or cause like some explosion or something, right? So just because you have chemistry doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy,
oh,
right?
that's a good way to see it.
And then there's also familiarity, which is like, I'm familiar with it. It feels comfortable. It might feel safe. It could be unsafe as well. But just because you're used to it doesn't make it healthy either. So I think those two things are important to look at when you're looking at a pattern in a toxic relationship, or really any relationship, right?
That's
Um,
true.
I think something that I've heard my clients talk about is, well, yeah, I'm comfortable, or I'm in my comfort zone, or it's familiar. Um, Kind of like what you're saying about clients, like, this is my chemistry with this person. It's like we have like this strong chemistry, and it could be sexual, or we have things in common, or intellectual,
Very
but
fiery passion.
right, like fiery or passionate. But that doesn't necessarily make it healthy.
That's true. Also just like chaos sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, like
Chaos feels
chaotic.
fun and
Mm-hmm.
exciting, and a lot of us crave that because we live lives of routine and structure. Like our society kind of has to work like that, and so anything out of the norm feels like, ooh, like I like that. Like I can get behind that.
Right, it's novel.
Hmm.
Yeah, novelty. But then it's like, it's fun until it isn't, right? And it's like, ooh,
Consequences.
yes, there are consequences, or like long term, just repeating that pattern over and over,
Hmm.
fighting, and then it's like fine and
Yeah.
stable. And then like, boom, another explosion, a chemical explosion, then like it's fine. And
Yeah.
then another up, and it's just like over and over. I think that's something that long term can really become like grating or eroding to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the inconsistency of it though, that excitement, also creates a stronger emotional bond than the consistency of it, right? Again, like going back to like those healthy relationships, it's that comes with more structure. We know how like the ebb and flow of things go, even if there's conflict, even conflict can be productive. And so that that's where it gets boring. So then chaos in relationships becomes really addicting. The highs keep
Mhm.
you really invested.
Yes, absolutely. Um, and that's part of a psychological term called intermittent reinforcement, right? And that's where it's kind of like gambling. And I talk to my clients who have relationship issues about this concept, because that's what keeps us going back, right? So intermittent reinforcement is exactly what it sounds like. It's reinforcement, like you're getting a reward intermittently. So it's not on a schedule, right? It's not like every 2 weeks I get flowers. It's like there's a fight, or there's like this and that every hour, every 2 hours, or every, not even on a schedule, right?
Yeah.
Like it could just be at any time. And then that's super rewarding. So we get a bunch of dopamine,
Hmm.
right? When that happens, and it's like, oh, yay, we won some money. Let's see if we can still keep winning. And then that's how gambling addiction occurs, but really any addiction.
Yeah.
Um, but relationship addiction is very similar to that, because you are working off of that reinforcement. Like, when am I going to get my next hit from this person?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this translates in session. How I like to reframe it is like validation, right? And validation tends to be like a hot word. Like people don't like it. People don't like to say that like they need validation or attention.
Oh,
But
mhm.
like we need it. As
Yeah,
humans, we need to know that we're doing things right. That's how we
exactly.
create like steady patterns. And so this constant like up and high and feeling good is validating. And so obviously we're going to keep coming back to the places that validate us, especially so if you've developed some kind of like trauma around relationships. It's
Mm-hmm.
just going to be like whatever feels good, that's what I'm going to chase. And something important that I think about often is how like people that are in very toxic relationships, right? There's always
Mm-hmm.
people around them that are like, you should leave, like, you know, this is bad, like, why aren't you out now? And what I always tell my clients is, well, you know that, right? But if it was that easy, you would have already done it.
Yeah, you would just do it.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I explain the cycle of abuse. And the cycle of abuse is so interesting because I think it really outlines specifically what happens at every point in relationships, but also it gives us like a notion of like where the out can happen. So it starts with like tension builds. There's like some kind of conflict brewing, and then like the aggression happens, whether it be like verbal, emotional, physical, sexual. That's like the big event, like the blow up, right?
Yes.
But then the aggressor starts to apologize. I'm so sorry. Like, let me make it better. I'm buying you gifts. I'm more engaged with you. That's called
Love bombing.
Yes, that's called the honeymoon phase. That part is what keeps people engaged.
Yes.
I keep waiting for the person that I first met and loved to keep doing this thing because, oh, like they do have it in him, but in spurts. But it's so random.
Inconsistent.
Yes. And we just keep waiting for that moment that feels good. And then there's a period of calm, but it starts all over again all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can definitely be a chronic stressor. It makes me think of chronic stress and what it does to the body and like our heart and our vascular system. And that's just something that affects not only our mental health, but our physical health as well. There's lots of studies on how chronic stress affects people in their lives. And sometimes I think when we think of chronic stress, it's like, oh, work and kids and routines, and that's what's stressful, or finances. But if you're in a relationship that is constantly stressful, or you're going through the cycle of abuse, that is definitely a chronic stressor and can be similar to the effects of trauma or like PTSD.
Yeah. I think we should define abuse. What do you classify abuse as with your years of experience?
The way I view it is like an issue of power and control. So when abuse occurs, there's a loss of control and a loss of power with someone. So somebody is exerting their power or coercion or force over someone so that they can, then the victim becomes disingenuous to themselves. They do things that they typically would not do. They go against their own values. And it's for survival, right? So it's like a perpetrator has power, abuses it, and the victim goes into like survival mode. So that's how I view it conceptually in my brain. But as far as a definition, I think it's just when somebody like seriously takes advantage of somebody in any way, physical, sexual, financial, emotional. There's so many types. It makes me think of that power and control wheel.
Yeah.
It's called the Duluth model of power and control. If you ever want to look that up, that's a really good resource for clients as well who are in these types of relationships.
Maybe we can post it on our Instagram.
Yeah, maybe we can. Yeah, definitely. So you all can follow along and see what it looks like. Also, if you don't follow us on Instagram, that's just a cue for me to remember to tell you to please go to @ClarityEP or @Through the Eyes of a Therapist. And that's our podcast and practice page. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok. And yeah, hopefully you can do that. And we'll definitely post these resources there. But as far as a definition, those are the kinds of things that come to my mind, is that serious taking advantage of or exploiting somebody in some way for another person to get power.
That's rough to hear though. And I think that when clients recognize that dynamic, it's a very powerful thing, but it's a very saddening thing. I think like coming to terms with it is like, whoa, abuse. I didn't realize that I was experiencing abuse. I've heard that quite a bit. I've been through that myself. Also, and it's always like a cold glass of water to the face.
Like a shock or like a daunting feeling, right? Like, oh my goodness, like this is something that I have been experiencing. I've definitely seen that in clients.
Yeah.
I have something to say about that. I think as therapists too, it's interesting to, once we label this and give psychoeducation, right, which is what this is, about abuse or unhealthy relationships or relationships that we probably should not be in, we need to be careful with the timing of that. And we need to really be attuned to our clients, because I think sometimes clients are not ready for that information, right? Where it's like, well, this is abuse. And if it's like the first session, you might not have enough rapport with the client. It might make them more unsettled or more, what is the word? Like if they're already in an insecure place because of like finances or housing, or like there's domestic violence and things like that, we need to be a little bit careful with how we frame interventions and psychoeducation and really create safety and rapport along with that psychoeducation.
Yeah. Also, I think it's hard to accept the definition of abuse fully when it's happening to you, because a lot of people seem to say something like, "Well, they're not hitting me, so it's not
Ah,
abuse." And I'm like,
I've heard
"Okay,
that very frequently.
that's like the highest escalation of it too." It's like, well, cool, but it's
Mhm.
still very impactful, right? Words can be impactful, actions, even inaction, like neglect, is also a form of
Mm.
abuse. And I think it just doesn't click sometimes because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
So well, let's talk a little bit about why we stay longer than we should. So our body gives us cues way before maybe like the brain clicks on and notices. But why do you think that we tend to stay in like unhealthy relationships when we shouldn't?
I think aside from the familiar hell versus the unfamiliar peace thing, I think that there's also a sense of I already invested a lot into this relationship and
I've
I
heard
don't
that.
want to leave because I've already been with this person for years or months, or we've spent a lot of money, or
You're
we
not gonna
have a
find
house together.
somebody
We
more
have
sold.
exactly like age or children or a bunch of other things that make you understand or feel or perceive that there's a lot invested in the relationship. And it's like there's no exit at this point. We're too far deep in, you know?
Yeah, I've heard that quite a bit
Yeah.
actually. So it feels like a loss, like it would be a loss at that point. But a lot of people don't realize that they've already lost quite a bit.
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah, I think sometimes when a client comes to me with that reasoning, something that can be helpful is talking about like cutting losses, right? So, again, if we go back to the gambling analogy, right, we can see how if you stop gambling at some point and stop feeding the
be addicted.
little machine like money, you're going to end up walking away with something in your bank account versus, well, let me just keep trying and trying and trying. You're really gambling with in relationships, like with time and resources and money and integrity and like sense of self and like relationships with other people. There's just so much more to be lost than money, I feel like. Um, but that's how I view it. I think that people feel super invested and they don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This also opens up some space to talk about like grief. And a lot of times we think of grief only as like the passing of a loved one or like a
Like death
breakup.
or something.
Yes, I
Right.
also think about like like the loss of your identity.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're in these kinds of relationships, you lose a piece of yourself
Oh,
that
for
you
sure.
once knew, and so it feels just kind of like, I don't know, this like gaping hole in your identity, and so that's something to grieve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because being in these long term relationships, again, whether it's a romantic partner or a job, you give so much of yourself, right? To that other person or entity or situation. And you can lose a sense of self and it changes who you are.
Yeah. How would you reframe to a client the idea of like wasted time? Well, I have wasted all this time. I can't leave because I won't be able to find somebody, or I won't be able to make any friends, or I have to stay in this toxic job because it's too late for me to switch up. How would you reframe that to somebody?
I would say something that was told to me personally, when I was going through something similar in my personal life. Um, maybe you've wasted 6 years with this person, or you've already spent 6 years with this person, but maybe it's better than losing 6 years and one day, or six
Oh,
years and a week.
damn. Okay.
Right. And
Yeah.
then because time will just keep going. And so life is really short. I think that empowering clients with information like this and reframes like this is really important because, again, these types of relationships that just eat away at people is a form of loss of power and control. So giving people that power back and that control back over their lives about their own decisions and how they can move forward, I think is really helpful
Yeah.
in therapy.
I've been using this really cool example from The Office. We have that one poster we have like a second office, and it says, "What's the best thing that could happen?" And I've been using that a lot lately because I saw it one time walking in, and then I was like, "Oh, inspired." And so like now I've like heard people be in like some thought loops like that, and then it's always kind of similar, right? Which is like, what's well, but what's the worst case scenario? Like, things could go sideways. And I'm like, but what's the best thing that could happen, though? Because really, like, we just think about all the bad things. But what if
Yes.
on the other side of this relationship, there's like a really healthy one, or you find yourself and you realize, hey, maybe I don't want to be with anybody, or I don't know, whatever, right? But
Mhm.
there's also that, like, what's the best outcome?
Exactly.
And best outcome, not expectation. Not that we're like, oh, I have to get to that, but like, okay, like things can be better. I don't have to just wait for the crappy.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't have to wait for, like you were saying, when clients are like, "Well, they haven't hit me."
Yeah.
Right? It's like we don't have to wait for that, right? Like,
No.
no, that's not, you can cut your losses now, or instead of however many years you've been in that relationship slash job slash situation,
Mm-hmm.
adding a day, adding a week to that.
Yeah.
I feel like it gets to the existential root of like, your life is short,
That's true.
you know?
That's true. I mean, a lot of the things we talk about, sometimes I tell my clients, like, I'm about to get really existential because, like, sometimes we need a little bit of, like, shaking of the shoulders to just be like, hey, like, we have one life and, like, you have been ruminating on this. Like, what if we try something else?
Yeah,
Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. But, like, shit, like, if I have one life, I'm gonna try it.
right. Something that I have clients do also related to that is having them reflect on, I want you to pretend that you're like 85 years old and that you are looking back on this current situation.
You're very Erickson's psychosocial stages.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way, but yeah, I mean, because it can be depressing at the end of your life, right? If you didn't really do what you wanted to or have a lot of regret.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to say, like, let's just reflect. I want you to pretend that you're like 85 and that 85-year-old you is giving this whatever 20-something, 30-something version of you some advice. What would they say?
I wouldn't.
Would they slap you? Would they like be
Hit
like,
you with a
oh,
cane.
mija, or oh, mijo, yeah, or smack you with a cane. When you said shaking of the shoulders, I imagined the Happy Gilmore. Have you seen the first one?
Wait, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, where Adam Sandler shakes his caddy, like, where were you on that one, dipshit?
Yes.
Anyways, so that's what went through my mind. We might have to overlay that.
That's funny. That's funny. You know what? Okay, but I have a hot take, and I don't know how you feel about this, especially as my supervisor, but
Andrea's hot takes. Yes.
but I will tell clients sometimes because they'll go into like the worst case scenario and they're like catastrophizing. I'm like, okay, well, let's catastrophize together, but let's do it productively. So
Let's go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and so I'll say like, okay, well, what is the worst case scenario?
Mhm.
And then a lot of people are always like, and I'm like, no, like, let's talk about it. And then we'll talk about the worst case scenario. And then, not lying, most of the time, like 90% of the time, it's like, well, you're already there.
Yeah.
Like, you're already at worst case scenario. So the only way now is up. So how do you, and then, even then, though, it's a lot about like, well, you've already been in worst case scenario before. This ain't the first time and you've gotten yourself out of it. So why are you convincing yourself that you can't?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's why I say it's a hot take, because I think it's just the way I'm like, let's catastrophize.
It's
All right.
not a hot take. You know what it reminds me of is like this is a little technical, but like the WDEP intervention from reality therapy or choice theory. So it's like, what are you doing right now? No, what do you want? What are you doing right now? Let's evaluate what you're doing to get what you want. And then let's create a plan. So it's like, we also have to look at what you're currently doing.
Yeah.
And how has that stuff that you've done in the past worked for you? And if it's not working, why are we repeating it? So, I mean, I get how it's a hot take because it's a little bit more direct, but it could be like a framework you work from. Yeah.
I mean, it works.
Yeah. You're like,
it gets
just
people out of
saying.
a pickle sometimes. It gets me out of a pickle. Like, and I tell my clients all the time, like, anything we do in session, I haven't, like, it's not something that I haven't done myself. I don't like to be hypocritical like that. You know, it's like, I experienced it. I'm walking you through it, hoping that, like, this might help you. And then if there's anything that I want to try or like anything new to explore, like, I will also put myself through it. Like, maybe it's like, I don't know, a worksheet. All right, I'm going to get comfortable with this worksheet, trying it out. What could somebody come across, or what are some issues somebody could come across? Like, planning everything out, right? But I think that comes off with a lot more care and compassion because people are like, oh shit, like you were willing to like put yourself through the ringer, and it's like, yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, and that's like the self-disclosure piece, right? Like being able to appropriately use it, like clinically, like not just I'm gonna now talk to you about the past 10 years of my life.
Yeah,
It's
no.
like, no, I'm not paying you for that. What the hell?
That'd be crazy. I can't imagine people actually doing that, but I know it happens.
Girl, it
I know
happens. If you have had a therapist that does this, I want to hear about it in the comments. Please tell us. Anyways.
Or like DM us if you don't want to put it in the comments.
Right. Yeah, DM
I want to
us.
know.
Give us their names. Just kidding. No.
That's
don't
funny.
do that.
Don't
Well, maybe. It's up to you. Anyway. Don't out them on the comments. But yeah, I think that the other thing is being able to look at your partner or your job, or oh my God, this happened to me with one of my last jobs that I lovingly call the hellhole.
Oh yeah.
Where
familiar hell.
The familiar hell. Excuse me. Did you just call me out? What the fuck? Now I can't focus. Just kidding.
I got it.
Aguante. So the falling in love with or being invested in the potential of someone versus what they're actually showing you.
You know what? We've all had that ex. We've all had, all of us.
Don't even lie to us. You know that you have. And I had that like ex job. I feel like that was a breakup. I think I told you that or told somebody that sometimes when you have a really good job and at least you think it is, right? And then it's like, man, that's great. I just want to be there forever. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, this is really abusive. I need to leave.
Yeah.
That's really hard. And so I think in this situation that I'm applying personally is I felt the love for the potential of the job and the love for the potential of a promotion or like the validation or like somebody seeing your hard work or the perks or whatever, right? Yeah. And then you like it never comes. And it's like, oh, that's sad. Realizing
cycle
that
of
reality.
Abuse, though. They keep you in this honeymoon phase.
Mm-hmm. And it was intermittent like reinforcement. Mm-hmm.
So you had like latch on forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's how some people end up pumping out 30 years of this.
I just realized we should do an episode about like how the cycle of abuse is correlated with the nonprofit industrial complex.
Oh,
I bet that they're related. If somebody hasn't studied that, you need to.
Oh yeah.
I ain't gonna do it.
I'm not a person.
I'm like, I ain't gonna do it. I'm not gonna go back.
But I'm open to you taking the idea.
Yeah, go ahead. It's fine.
And then just let us know.
Just put us as co-author. Just kidding.
And what's it called? The footnotes.
The footnotes, yeah, the little thing, the fine print at the bottom.
That's funny.
Or Through the Eyes of a Therapist podcast reference page. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what though? Okay, I want to speak to that now in like maybe relationship or friendship perspectives. Mm-hmm. Like your toxic ex. Right? Like, mm-hmm. I don't know, your first love or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I think this happens most often, like, when you're younger. So, like, teens through, like, I don't know, 30s.
Keyword most often.
Most often, yes.
Yeah.
Or keyword, yes. I just said the same word again. I'm like, yes.
I knew what you meant. Like, you agreed with the idea.
I agree with it, yeah. But during those times, we feel like we have to hold on to everything so hard because your teens, your 20s essentially are like a time of consistent, quick growth, right? A lot of achievement anxiety. We have to like get married, have kids, have a job, graduate, get a master's, get a car, get a house. And so we live in an era of potential.
Yes.
So then we assume that everything else, including relationships, will kind of follow that trajectory and like get better, right? But that's a lot to put on ourselves.
Yeah. Hot take.
Yeah.
Chris's hot take. I wonder if it's cultural based on generation. Because I think like millennials, right? I know that there's a lot of talk about like how the economy has affected millennials. Bear with me. I swear this is related. But what you're saying is that there's this like right way to do life, right? So it's like according to society or according to our boomer parents or whatever it is, yes. Right? Like you have to get a college degree at a 4-year university. You have to then be in a heterosexual, cisgendered, like sort of relationship relationship, right? And then you got to get married and then you got to have kids. And then it's like if you didn't do that in that order or something went awry, then you somehow failed. So I can see what you're saying, right? In relationships, when you hold on to this potential, this is what I have to do, right? Then I wonder if it's like a millennial thing too, because I don't know if like a maybe Gen Z person would tolerate that bullshit like we did. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, you know what's interesting? I'm like right in that cusp, like right in the middle of both.
you are, that's true.
And I think like the Gen Z part of me fights against that system so hard because I'm, I think I joke with my husband a lot about this, but I tell him like, you're lucky I got married because I was not the girl that had a Pinterest board when it was time to plan our wedding. Like
I did.
I remember, oh, millennial. Just kidding.
And I still have a side part and I love it forever.
I remember the wedding planner asking me like, oh, well, like, do you have like, you know, like your little Pinterest board and like bring all those ideas here? And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't have no Pinterest.
All judgmental.
I was like, I didn't even like this guy till the last. I'm just kidding. But like little notions like that, right? And so also something very controversial initially in my family was like, okay, now you're married and why are you not having kids? That's one. But also I'm like, well, I love my career. And people are like, but your biological clock is ticking. And I'm like, what if I don't want kids? Like having kids sounds kind of crazy. I can't even take care of myself. I can't even feed myself breakfast and I'm gonna be worried about a kid. And like that's so hard, you know, because then all these societal expectations are like we're seeing other people kind of move through these stages because of a cultural thing or maybe a generational beliefs. And so we feel like we're doing it wrong.
So then we have to stay in the relationship because we don't want to disappoint whatever that internalized notion is of like society or like our parents or some of it's cultural, I feel like too, like Mexican parents, like, when are you going to have kids and when are you going to give me grandkids, like kind of thing. And I'm like, bro.
And you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that because I think we had talked about in like the imposter syndrome episode where like career wise, right? We like Hispanic women, Hispanic individuals tend to stay in those like environments a lot longer because we're trying to like climb up and we just kind of take it. Okay, like, yeah, like I'll endure like the, I don't know, the ugliness from my boss and like it develops this thing of like, I'm fucking up. I'm the one that's doing things wrong. I'm the one that needs to be better, get the next degree, climb higher. And that's why most of us are super educated. And it's like a cycle that never ends because essentially you're going to run out of like rungs to climb up.
Yes, exactly. I saw this creator. I'm going to have to find it and post it below because it is escaping me at the moment. But I really like his TikTok channel. He's like an influencer who talks about leadership in like being a Latino or Latinx person. And yesterday I came across a TikTok where I like turned it up and I was like, amen, brother, because it was like really cool talking kind of about how we endure or we suffer or we put up with as a culture like these relationships or these jobs, or we don't feel like we're good enough to move forward or move upward because of whatever societal expectations, even like our own internalized depression, which I think most of it is that, right? But it's totally true for relationships. It's like, well, I'm just doing this for the kids, or I'm doing this because I feel like I'm not going to be able to push through financially. And what I think in therapy has to happen is, again, empowering the client and telling them and talking with them realistically about like, look at all these like strengths you have and like how resourceful you are and like all the kind of like bullshit you're putting up with right now and how that has built like not only because of the bullshit but themselves are resilient people, and it's like have that come out and have them realize their own potential so that they don't have to endure these things. So, and it's the same with like jobs too, right? Like friendships and all kinds of relationships.
The question, can people actually change and what does real change look like, is important. I think like, can people actually change is something that at least I come across often in session. Here's the thing too, before I mention anything about that, most of the people that we see in session tend to be, or at least that I've seen in session, tend to be on the receiving end of that abuse, and then they're the ones trying to fix everything.
Let
me solve it. Let me come and change myself so then my relationship can be better. And then we work for a while and then we're like, well, you're not the issue. Like, you're not the entire issue, at least, right? Like, is there things we could tweak? Absolutely. But this also stems from, like, maybe your partner or your parents or your friends or, like, the environment that you're in. You're, like, crazy boss. And so we have to teach people to, or not teach, but work with them to understand that, like, it doesn't always just fall on you and you're already changing everything you can. So then at some point we have to understand that that's not in my control. I can't change them. I can just adjust myself and then move forward or allow myself to exist in this environment if I don't want to make change for myself.
Yes.
And that's so crazy to think about.
Yeah. But it's also like an intervention, right? Because it's like almost like radical acceptance. Like, okay, then like we've changed everything that we could on our end over here because we can't control another person. We're still in this situation. So now we have to learn to accept, like, these are our circumstances, which we never really want to get to that point, right? But, and I tell my clients, or clients I work with, Maya is so like I own, sorry. But the clients I work with, I tell them, like, my job is not to help you adapt to an oppressive environment and cope with that. So some of the things that I say might go contradictory to like your current beliefs or like what you want right now. And are we a good fit anymore? Because I'm not going to be like, this is an extreme example. There's like indentured servitude or enslavement or some sort of abuse, right? And then I'm like, how do you continue survive in that? Like, so you can keep that status quo. It's like, no, like, absolutely not. That would be, I feel like, negligent or like
well, we would
willfully blind about
would be contributing to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm glad that you said that though, because that helps people understand that, like, our job is not just to sit there and validate you, because then we'd be ChatGPT.
Or a life coach.
Or like
I have so much beef. We're gonna come up with. We have to do that episode.
But
so much shit for
I
that.
mean, we have to be able to say, like, hey, so are you wanting to change or not? If not, then that's okay. But let me know, so then I know what to do.
Right.
Because then at that point, I don't think I can serve the needs that you come in wanting, I don't know, support with.
Right. And I think it then has to do with like the next point of like self-worth. Right? Like, why am I believing that this is the place I'm going to land for the rest of my life, or for like even just this moment in time? Like, again, time is precious. We have one life to live. We don't know how long we're going to live. Like, it's very morbid, but it's also something we have to face as humans. And it's like, are we going to tolerate this for another day or another year, another hour, right? Like, how much time are we going to give this? And am I worth the change, or am I worth the I've got to leave now and stand up for myself? This reminds me too of like, well, I'm not going to go into it too much because I think that could be a whole episode, but boundaries. A lot of people have the notion that like we set boundaries onto others. You set a boundary for yourself because others can decide if they want to respect it or not, right? There's always like that consequence. But we don't go and just like, I wouldn't go and tell you like, well, you can't talk to me. Because you can do whatever you want. Right. That would be a rule.
That would be a rule. Exactly.
And then I could break it if I wanted to.
But boundaries are set upon yourself. Here is where I am drawing the line on what I do or how I extend myself, or how much effort or energy I want to put into something, because that's what you can control. You cannot control how somebody else responds, right? You could tell your partner, well, I don't want to, I don't know, continue an argument if I get heightened. But your partner can be like, well, what the fuck? Like, I need to know. I need to have the answer. I need to see the conclusion of this argument. But you can decide like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stand ground on my boundary and I'm going to walk away, and they could follow you. But then it's just a matter of like, no, like
you are controlling yourself, and you are learning how to build that tolerance with being, what is the word? Like, not like people pleasing, but like the opposite of that. Like, I'm going to be assertive, and some people might not like that.
Yeah. Ooh, I like to say, like when we set boundaries, we tend to be like the villains first for a while.
Yeah.
Like, because people are not going to like it.
And it also might be really hard for people who have not been used to setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Setting a boundary and keeping the boundary is suddenly like, oh my God, am I a bitch? Like, why am I such an asshole? And it's like, well, wait, hold on. Those are like reasonable things, like
Yeah.
reasonable things you're asking for, right? And then I go into sometimes in therapy, I'll be like, let me give you a really extreme example. If you step on my feet, okay, and you just constantly keep stepping on my feet, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk away every time you step on my feet, right? So then you try to step on my feet, I walk backwards, and then I go, damn, like, I'm such a bitch for stepping backwards. Like, and it's like, really?
Yeah.
Like, but you're not getting hurt anymore,
Yeah.
right? And it's like you're empowering yourself to prevent some of that stuff. And so although boundaries and holding them can be very empowering, it can be scary, or it can cause that sort of like, am I doing this wrong? Am I a bad person?
What do you think changes when somebody starts to believe that they truly deserve better?
I call it the glow up.
Oh,
yeah. Have you ever
okay.
heard of those like post-divorce or post-breakup glow ups?
Oh my God, I have a funny story for that.
Okay.
So when I went to my bachelorette trip, we went to Nashville, and okay, this is like a funny one.
Okay.
Like,
I'm ready.
or
Where's my
personal
cup?
story. So like we went to like those male shows, I didn't really care too much for it, but me and my friends were just watching. It was funner to watch, but there was a divorcee party. And she looked like she was having the time of her life. Like, this lady was like everywhere, talking to all the guys, dancing with all the guys. And it was like the her show. And I was so cool with it because I'm like, you looked like you needed that. And I'm so happy for you. So it was a glow up. That's the best, like, I don't know, image of it I can.
Right. I think that people, to go back to your question, I think people become more genuine with themselves and authentic because as a person-centered therapist, like that's what we want people to do, right? Like really find their true authentic selves, live up to their own values. And I think that once people start to let go of things that no longer serve them, they become more authentic and more genuine and more free and not as apologetic. Is that the word? Yeah, and I think that can be super liberating.
I like that.
And physically too, you can tell, like,
they get
right,
sparkle back.
like there's like a sparkle or like a
I love seeing
confidence
those
or like
in session. And then I'll tell clients like, well, you seem like you're doing really great. Should we try for a month now? Are we entering maintenance stage? I've been using that one a lot. And people are like, oh, I never thought I'd get here. And it usually prompts a lot of emotion, which is like so sweet.
I never thought I'd get here is like something I hear a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh.
It's like, but I believed in you.
Yeah, I'm like, I knew it since day one.
You were going to do it.
Yeah. Okay, so, well, let's kind of bring it back full circle then, and I want to ask you, what do you think is one takeaway that you want people to have today? Maybe I didn't word that right, but
no, yeah, I get it. Like a takeaway from the episode, everything we talked about, I think is, they're all important things to consider when you're in a relationship of any kind that doesn't serve you. So I think the first takeaway for me is remember that relationships happen everywhere. It doesn't just have to be with a romantic partner. It could be with a job or a friendship or a school or a mentor or whatever it is. And if it's not serving you, as they say, or enhancing your life, it's not healthy. You can identify some of these things that we talked about that were not healthy. We can't tell you what to do or even really make suggestions. We're just giving this for like education, right? And so something that's a little sneak in disclaimer, like
we're just therapists.
We're not your therapist though. So always get your own medical advice and your own therapy advice. But the takeaway is to remember that life is short. If you've been in that situation for however long, I use the number 6 because for me, that's how long it was. It was 6 years. And it's like, okay, do you want to do 6 years and a week, 6 years and a day? When are you going to cut your losses, And just considering that, like how life is short and you do deserve to live a high quality life.
I think my takeaway is meet yourself with kindness too. because
Hmm.
you'll hear a lot of like, just leave, just get out of this, like, you know better, da da da. You do, and it also has to come from a place where your body and your mind click and just understand, and that takes time sometimes.
It does.
And so remember to take a step back and recognize the changes that you're already making. Maybe they don't look monumental. Maybe it's not like from one day to the next you're going to leave this person, but give yourself some grace. I am working through it. If you're in therapy, you're actively working on it. Like, it doesn't have to look enough for other people. Just it has to feel like 1% better every time for you until you're ready to shed that part.
You made me think of something else really quickly, is that when people come to session, as you were saying before, typically like a woman identifying person in a heterosexual relationship, right? And they come and say, I'm coming to therapy to fix myself because my relationship just sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, that might not look what you expect it to look like.
Yeah.
And there might not be like, oh, we point out all these things that are wrong with you and like fix them now because you're a toxic ass motherfucker. You know, and it's like, that's not what happens. I think what happens most of the time is that you realize, oh, I have reasonable expectations. I have basic human needs like connection and validation and care. And these are reasonable and I'm not getting those things. Or, right? Like they learn about themselves. They learn about patterns. They learn about systems. I like to include systems work with clients. And then they're like, oh, okay.
And that might be frustrating for some people, though, because a lot of people have the expectation that you come into therapy and it's a quick fix. And they leave because they're like, well, what are we working on? And I'm like, we are getting somewhere. It's just, it's been 20, 30 years of the same thing. This is not going to be undone in a month, 2 months.
Right. Exactly.
I wish I was a magician. Or I say to my clients, like, I wish I was psychic, but then I wouldn't have a job.
That's true. Yeah, if I were a magician, I would have made my millions long ago, and like I wouldn't be doing this, right?
Yeah.
There's that T-shirt that says "I'm a therapist, not a magician."
Oh, we need that.
We do need that.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
Well,
anyway,
just a reminder. Again, like, you're not weak for going through something like this. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some time to acknowledge also the progress that you've made. You're still learning. We're all learning. We're all in this big floating sphere, just learning. Even we are every day.
Yeah. And you deserve a higher quality life. And go to therapy and visit our page at Clarity EP and also Through the Eyes of a Therapist. This was Through the Eyes of a Therapist podcast with Andrea Luna and Crystal Acosta, and we will see you next time.